broadly speaking, I think the BBC is in an amazing position to be able to capitalise from the growth of digital content distribution, right? So the BBC historically has had far more content than it really knows how to distribute effectively. And so the emergence of Hulu, of Netflix, of iTunes in either the VOD space or the download to own space has presented an enormous opportunity to us to take our content to audiences that we perhaps haven't been able to reach. So Netflix are driving through the US market with a large subscriber base and marketing heavily, and a large proportion, having a large chunk of BBC content in there, is taking it to people that previously wouldn't have had access to it. It's the same on iTunes. We have been a cornerstone partner of iTunes from the off. We have always made as much of our programming available there as we possibly can, and that's one reason why we have seen the success that we have. And I know I was mentioning to you the other day that Doctor Who was the #1 show on iTunes last year, and that beating Mad Men and House and all those sort of huge American series, because where those potentially have a larger platform from a traditional distribution perspective, BBC Worldwide is able to go full throttle into that, and it's a real point of difference.
So the consumption is driven by really good content, but is there any way that you support your digital properties, or they just sort of bubble up? Could you explain that a little?
Yeah, no, discovery of content is one of those things that is going to be the question of the next few years, right? And I still believe there isn't a holy grail answer. At the BBC we don't say, well, it's algorithmic, right? Which is potentially the Google answer to most questions, right? And we don't believe necessarily that it's fully editorialized either. It's probably a combination of a number of different things. I think an algorithmic blend is important. So if you're watching a particular show on Netflix, which, and we can highlight shows from the UK BBC catalogue that you might also like, I think that is useful. An editorialised approach, which is the approach that we take with the Global iPlayer, where we're sort of recommending to you as experts in the content that if you like this content, or this content is particularly relevant on this particular day. Social, as we know, will play an increasingly important component, what your friends are watching and recommending, and we've seen how Netflix has managed to use that pretty effectively here in the UK, although in the US some legislation makes that slightly more difficult. So, content discovery is important, right? And then there's a traditional marketing element to it too. So, don't forget that the part of the reason why Doctor Who was successful was because it was on BBC America. BBC, those cable channels still reach a big audience. Maybe BBC America is not the same size as Discovery, but yet at the same time, it does play a significant role in making all boats rise.
Let me just ask you this about apps and the proliferation of apps, and what are your thoughts about how they will develop, or how that ecosystem may change one way or another?
The app ecosystem is still very new, although the irony in that is that it's, I think in the mind of the consumer, is the behaviour is already quite entrenched for existing smartphone users. So, we place a lot of value on either the Android store, on the iTunes store, and we will continue to develop the properties that we have in there and make new ones, right? We see it as an important way to reach the audience and an important way to develop mobile propositions that are bespoke for the handset or bespoke for the operating system. However, it is my long-term belief that eventually we will see more applications existing on the web in an HTML5 framework or equivalent that will give the same type of functionality, the same customized mobile experience without the need of going via a third-party app store. That will take time to happen, both because the technology is not quite there yet, and also because the consumer themselves will need to change their behaviors too. And both of those things take some while. But if discovery is a problem in the app stores, as we all believe it is, right? It's hard to maintain the types of discovery that we would like. We're not so quite as dependent on that as potentially new brands are. The BBC doesn't always need App Store top 10 ranking in order to be front of people's minds. We have other mechanisms for doing that.